Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Instagram Live with a good friend and an educator out in the space, Dr. Scott Sherr. And we're going to be discussing methylene blue, hence why my tongue is blue. Okay, so Scott is here with Transcriptions. So that is Scott's company, which he has founded with a legend in the space called Dr. Ted Azanaki. I think I'm pronouncing his name wrong or butchering his name, but we'll cover that in a bit. There we go, Asakosa. So welcome, Scott. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, Ryan. It's great to hear you, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, awesome. I'm partially indoors just because there's building work next door.
I
So
can't.
it's,
I'm shocked and appalled,
well,
actually, Ryan.
well, I mean, the door is here, but it's just, I mean, I'll go a bit closer just because I've got
No,
the
it's
methylene blue. And then I obviously want to get the infrared light and the red light, which obviously we'll cover and discuss more about
nice,
methylene blue.
nice.
But I mean, do you want to just, before we give you an intro and stuff, let's just
Sure.
do a disclaimer. Let's do the right thing here. And just like, this is just for information purposes only.
Indeed.
Everything that we will outline will obviously be found on an article that's already on my website. But also, if you want to find more, please go to Transcription's website, where there'd obviously be references just to support everything we're saying. But also, please speak to your medical physician, advisor. This is not personal medical advice. Okay? So, Scott, please
Lovely.
tell us more about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you for the disclaimer, Ryan. That's always a good start for these kinds of things. So I'm an internal medicine physician. I'm certified in hyperbaric oxygen therapy as well as health optimization medicine, which is a foundational way to practice health. And the idea with health optimization medicine in practice is to train doctors and practitioners like me to optimize health rather than treat disease, and also practitioners like you, Ryan, as well. Don't have to be a doctor to get certified in it. This is actually developed by Dr. Ted Atracoso, the doc that you were trying to pronounce a little earlier. So Ted is he's a physician of many talents, and he started this practice, health optimization medicine in practice, maybe about 10 years or so ago in his own practice, and now has developed it into a nonprofit organization. That nonprofit is training doctors and practitioners like me. And I signed up to be part of the nonprofit back in 2016. And it's been a fun ride. We now have an essential certification for doctors and practitioners. And Transcriptions actually came out of the nonprofit organization. Transcriptions is a company that is looking to solve problems now for people that are truly looking to do the hard work with you and with me, Ryan, to really optimize their health rather than just put Band-Aids on things and continue to be in really bad lighting like me all the time. Yeah, I'm in fluorescent lighting today, so we have the opposite scenarios. I like that. So, but anyway, the idea with Transcriptions really was to find solutions right now for people while they were going through the challenges and the ups and downs of optimizing their health, whether that might be nutritionally, supplements, diet, lifestyle, all those kinds of things. You need brain function now. You need mitochondrial support now. You need relaxation now, and that's how we kind of developed the company and the products. And methylene blue was one of the first things that we really came out with in 2020. And it's been a fun ride to see what's been happening with this amazing little compound that's been around for over 100 years. So,
Yeah, I mean, before we say like, what is it? What does it
yeah.
do? Like, I just want to know why now is there a few companies out there selling this and promoting this, talking about this? Why wasn't this known like 10, 20, 30 years ago with like vitamin C, ascorbic acid, and all the rest of it?
Yeah, so the real research for mitochondrial optimization when it comes to methylene blue started a couple decades ago, maybe about 20 years ago. And it's really only been over the last 10 years or so that there's been a decent amount of literature that methylene blue is a mitochondrial optimizer. And before that, it was at higher doses, it was thought of as an anti-infective. Before there were antibiotics around, antimicrobials, back in the 1950s, methylene blue was like your only antimicrobial for urinary tract infections. It was used for malaria. It was something that World War II pilots had to actually carry around with them when they were in the Pacific Theater during World War II as an antifungal. And so we know it has all these properties at higher doses. But it wasn't really until the last 20 years that we knew it was a mitochondrial optimizer. Although we knew that it stained mitochondria for decades because it's been used as a stain in laboratory analysis for a really long time. And so over the last several years, we came out with it because we knew it was a mitochondrial optimizer because of that literature. And there was a lot of interesting work that was being done during the pandemic, as well as at how you can use this particular compound in various ways to help support the mitochondria, let's call it. Help you with brain fog, help you with fatigue, et cetera. And so a lot of other companies started getting developed around these ideas after we started.
And then, okay, so we got all these benefits, we've got the history of it. It's cured certain like diseases and problems and dysfunction and imbalances. But let's scale it back. Like, okay, we're talking about the mitochondria here. Most people are not familiar with that, but what essentially does methylene blue do essentially?
So essentially what it does is a lot of different things, but in the mitochondria itself, it's called an electron cycler.
What is a mitochondria? I mean, I know the answer to this. I'm just trying to
No, of course. People, I appreciate that. So your mitochondria are the organelles, the part of your cell that make all of your energy, most of your energy. About 90% of the energy that you make at the cellular level is made by your mitochondria. This is in a form of ATP. You have something on your mitochondria called your electron transport chain. This is a number of protein complexes that work together to basically take the food that we eat and electrons from that food and create what's called a gradient so that you can make ATP. That's the short story. And then at the end of that process, to be able to make ATP, you need oxygen. Oxygen is the final electron acceptor in these organelles called your mitochondria. And so when you make energy, you make ATP, but you make water, you make carbon dioxide, and you also make something called reactive oxygen species. These are called ROS or oxidative stress, or there's other names for these kinds of molecules. But this is all normal, and this is what we're doing millions of times a day at some ridiculous number. We have about at least a quadrillion mitochondria in our body. We have the most mitochondria in our brain, in our heart, in our liver, in our muscle tissue. And this is because
I'm pretty sure in our kidneys as well.
In the kidneys. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for rounding that out. Yes. And the kidneys as well. And so we need to be making a ridiculous amount of energy at any given moment to be able to process and do everything that we need to do in all those places. Now, of course, your muscles have the reserve when you need them. They might not be actually using all that ATP or needing all that ATP all the time. But in general, so your mitochondria are thought of as your powerhouse or your energy producer of your cell. And so when we're looking at methylene blue specifically for your mitochondria, we're seeing that it's working in a couple different ways. It's working both as a energy enhancer, so it actually improves the energy production capacity of your mitochondria. So it allows you to make more energy. It actually does this in several different ways, but to keep it sort of on the simpler side, it helps increase one of the protein complexes called complex 4, and also increases some of the electron donating capacity of the first couple complexes, something called NAD or NAD plus as well, increasing NAD plus supply as well. And so you're enhancing energy production. And at the same time, when you make energy, as I described, you're also creating these reactive oxygen species, these oxidative stress molecules. And methylene blue has the way of neutralizing these at the same time. So it basically increases energy and increases resilience at the same time. That's the easy way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, this like the one liner for me would be it just improves energy efficiency across the board. Yeah. So I mean, but again, most people don't realize it donates, but it also accepts electrons as well. But this comes into like the dose as well, because obviously there's clear literature on this. Like we don't want too much, we don't want, but there's no benefit of having even more. Funny enough. So in terms of like dosing, or how would you go about that? Or like obviously on the personal level, but also in a clinical level, if you had to use generalized recommendations.
Yeah, so there's a really interesting world out there that looks at what's called low dose methylene blue, and then there's called medium dose and high dose. But even inside the low dose methylene blue world, there's a lot of nuance in there too. So like in general, we don't use high dose methylene blue. That's 10 milligrams per kilogram. That's really, really high dosing. Medium dose is 3 milligrams to 10 milligrams, which is also really high dose. And then, so we really are going to focus on the low dose category here, because anything above about 3 milligrams per kilogram is going to have, it's called a hormetic response dose curve or dose response curve, where over 3 milligrams, you're going to cause more stress to the system. Instead of improving energy production or mitochondrial efficiency, as you said, you're going to decrease mitochondrial efficiency. So there's some reasons to do that, but there's not a huge amount of reason to do that. So for the most part, we're talking about low dose methylene blue, less than 3 milligrams per kilogram. But even in that range, we're really looking at less than 1 milligram per kilogram as being your optimization dosing. This is for mitochondrial optimization, mitochondrial efficiency. So this is if you're a 60 kilogram female or like a 70 kilogram male, you're talking about less than that per day to really get optimal dosing. And for us, what we did at Transcriptions was fine dosing that was being studied for cognitive optimization specifically. And this was in the range of what we put in our troches at 16 milligrams for a full troche, and up to about 4 of those per day, depending, and that's even less than 1 milligram per kilogram, or around 1 milligram per kilogram if you were going to do all those in the same day. But what it comes down to it is that the super low dose like we use, like the less than 1 milligram per kilogram, is really for mitochondrial optimization, helping with the electron cycling, as I described, helping with significantly focused on brain function, as we were discussing earlier, as well, because the brain has a lot of mitochondria. And then if you need higher dosing, it's okay to use it on occasion. But the challenge, even with 1 milligram to 3 milligrams per kilogram dosing, is that over time, that's going to build up in the body, because methylene blue has at least a 6-hour half-life, which just means it stays in the body for at least half of it stays in the body for 6 hours, and it slowly goes down over time. So the challenge is if you take higher dosing, it can build up and cause stress in the body if you take too much. And so, and the other thing is that at the higher dosing as well, I also worry about what are called biofilms in your gut, because we have these biofilms in our gut, which are they're usually made of mucus, they're made of bacteria, they're made of fungus, they can be made of all different types of things, depending on where you live in Nicaragua, what you're eating at the moment. And as a result of that, these biofilms are very healthy for us, but they can be pathologic in some cases. Like, so for example, Bartonella is a co-infection that we see with Lyme disease. This one does very well with 25 milligrams twice a day of methylene blue in some studies, but that's also disrupting biofilms, and that's how it's working. So you have to be careful with taking too high of a dose for too long, because you may mess up regular biofilms as well. So in short, we use very low dose methylene blue, 16 milligrams in a full troche. Most of the people that use our troches take about half of that on a daily basis or on a regular basis. And so you asked me what I do, Ryan. That's what I typically do, is I take about a half a troche on a daily basis for my mitochondrial optimization strategies, along with everything else I do.
But like that wouldn't be a daily occurrence. It'd be like when you really need it, or maybe you had a shit night's sleep, and or maybe you got a lot of tasks to do, consultations and whatnot. Mm-hmm. That's when you would essentially suck on it, basically. That's when you would place it in your mouth.
I think a lot depends on your lifestyle, right? Like what's going on. Like if I'm going to be under fluorescent light all day today, for example, like I know I'm going to have more oxidative stress because of that. So I'll take methylene blue. So the challenge I see with this, Ryan, is that like most of us don't have access to the things that you have access to at the moment, right? So and so as a result of that, we are dealing with mitochondrial stress on a daily basis. And so I see this clinically in people that have brain fog and fatigue and have concentration issues, or they have a hard time getting to sleep or whatever it might be. And so working on all that stuff, like I find that you can take low dose methylene blue, like what we have in our troches, on a regular basis, like 5, even 7 days a week if needed. And if you're keeping it low dose, it's a way just to continue to give your mitochondria some extra support while you're doing the other things. I mean, you may not need it forever, that's for sure. Yeah. It may be one of the things you need just when you're having a harder time. But in the world that we live in today, in general, we're talking about, needing that extra support on a regular basis overall. But that's the challenge, though, is that there's a little bit of confusion in the market as to what you should be doing with methylene blue, how often you should be taking it, and what kind of dosing. Especially if you're taking on a higher dose, you don't want to be doing what I'm talking about here, because that can cause more stress on the mitochondria over time if you're not careful.
Do you find that's a problem with other companies using liquid formulas where you can just easily just take too much?
It's so hard to dose those. Yeah, that's been a lot of challenges that we've heard from users with other products. It's like it's hard to dose it, and it's also have to put it in liquid, and it can make more of a mess. The thing with our company, and this, Ryan, too, is that like there's 4 docs on the team, including me. And all of us, I'm actually playing a doctor here with scrubs and everything for you today.
Who's
See?
got the
Yeah.
overalls, showing off.
Yeah, exactly. I do some part-time work.
And when you when you got the tongue in, it matches as well. Amazing.
It does, yeah. So actually, I tend
True
to.
smurfing.
Yeah, true smurfing at the hospital. Although I'm not actually. I swallowed my methylene blue today. So and we can talk about this. I will sometimes swallow it. I'll sometimes dissolve it in my mouth. It depends on the situation. And that's the deal with our troches in general, is that we have this delivery device, which is called a troche. It's a square lozenge, and it's a square, and it's scored. So it means you can break it up into a quarter, into a half, into a full. And as a result of that, you can kind of titrate your dose as to what you need. And so for me, my usual daily dose is either, if I'm going to take on a regular basis, I should say, it'd be usually like a half of a troche. If I know it's going to be a stressful week or whatever, then it might take more as a result of that. But the deal with the troches is that they dissolve in your mouth between your upper cheek and your gums. And they take about 15 to 30 minutes to do that. And the reason why we actually came out with troches initially, and we still use troches for all of our products, is that it dissolves directly into the mucosa of your cheek. And as a result of that, it gets directly into your bloodstream in your brain. And it's going to start making the effect faster up there. And also, because you don't have to swallow it, it doesn't go through something called first pass metabolism in the liver. Basically, that means that you have to digest it. If you digest it, it takes longer. And oftentimes with most products, actually, you're going to get less of an effect because of liver digestion. Methylene blue is a little bit interesting like that, though, because it is almost 100% bioavailable, which means that even if you swallow it and go through your liver, it's still going to be almost fully available, just as if you dissolve it in your mouth. But the difference, as I mentioned, is that it's going to be faster in your mouth and more focused on your brain. And so that's why the troches are really great, because for our other products that have other ingredients in them, we have the ability to go direct into the bloodstream and bypass the liver right there and get those directly in you.
So essentially a bit like hormones, when you can use transdermal and micronized to a certain degree, having different effects of bypassing that first phase that you're referring to. In terms of like people who are in the office or in like say they're working in a shop, they want the effects, but the blue tongue is a bit like not professional depending on the circumstances.
Right.
What can people do about that?
Yeah. So first of all, methylene blue, like I said, you can actually just swallow it if that's really what you choose to do. What I found is that it's not as brain focused, the improvements that you feel, but it's more, you still feel the physiologic shift. It's not, so the thing about methylene blue is that, if you're taking it by itself, you're not going to feel like you're stimulated. You're not going to feel like you're on Adderall or that you're on caffeine or nicotine. Yeah. For most people.
We'll come to that point next with like combinations, but like, is there a way you would just say basically just swallow it and you're still going to get the benefits? It's just honestly, you haven't got the cool blue tongue.
Well, the first thing we often say, and I should have started with this, is blue is the new smart, as you know, Ryan, right? So that's our slogan. So it's like, it's if people give you a hard time, you have a blue tongue. It's like, well, why is your tongue not blue? Are you smart like me? So it's the blue is the new smart is our slogan. We do have about 4 or 5 different remedies that we talk about on our Instagram page. You guys can go check it out for ways that you can de-blue faster. Do you have any favorite ways to do that, or it's not something you care about? So,
I mean, I don't really care. I mean, I do. I just wear shorts all day and no shoes. So a blue tongue is not really a problem to my lifestyle at the moment.
I understand. So we have a couple of things. I mean, the easiest things are if you have some hot liquids, that'll usually help. If you if you are worried about it being for a while, we have things like baking soda, and there's some vinegar remedies that we have too. So we have all those on our Instagram page. You guys can check out. But in general, if for pure methylene blue, without any of our other products involved, it's something that you can swallow to get the mitochondrial benefits for it, and that's important. And so, and the nice thing about our product again is that you can titrate the dosing. You can very easily go to a quarter, to a half, to a full, to even multiple times in the same day if needed. And that's sometimes what you need if your body's under more stress. And so even if people are taking higher dose methylene blue, I do also recommend taking our product, because at least you know exactly how much you're taking, and it's easy for you to do instead of having to worry about the liquids and the powders and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to add on to that, it's obviously convenient as well to travel with it. So again, I don't use methylene blue that much really, but when I do, or when I do go into a sort of a higher dose than normal, would be like travel on a plane or in the airport or all these kind of situations, or even in a car, because actually that's fairly like high in the non-native EMF and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Changing the subject a little bit, going back to the combinations. So again, what we see in some of the literature is the combos of using it with red light. So red light therapy, sunlight. What advice would you give around using in combinations, whether it's coffee or whether it is with fasting, ice baths, meditation, all these kind of things? What have you noticed?
Yeah, those are really great topics. One thing I forgot to talk about with the other companies and our company with methylene blue real quick is that we are pharmaceutical grade methylene blue. It's really important that if you're looking for a product, it's pharmaceutical grade. And then also it's got a USP grade. That's basically the highest pharmaceutical grade you can get. The challenge though, even with that, is that even USP grade can be contaminated. So ask your company for their third-party testing. So we do third-party testing. Our manufacturer does third-party testing, and then we do our own third-party testing again once we get each batch, because we've had to throw some batches out or send them back. I mean, it's actually quite
really
difficult to find.
Even on your you've actually double tested it and it wasn't even good enough. Okay, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
In the beginning, when we were looking at multiple different companies to supply methylene blue, we had to throw a bunch out. Yeah, it was. That's why it took us about 9 months to first release our first product, because we took that long to find a manufacturer that we could trust, and we still test their stuff every single time that we get it, just to be sure. So, but back to your questions. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I think so. So, I mean, I use this clinically, right? Like I use this with my patients, and so like this is not something that I wanted to mess around with. And we talk about being as close to a prescription as you can get without being one, because that's the quality that we care about. And so with combinations, to go back to what you were asking about, sorry for the derailment there, but it's the red light therapy is really interesting. There was some literature that was published, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago by this researcher named Dr. Francisco Gonzalez Lima. He's got a great paper on the combination of red light and methylene blue. So red light actually donates photons to the electron transport chain, actually the same protein, the same complex that methylene blue does. And so we think that they work in combination because basically they're synergistic. And if I'm not sure if you've had this experience, but I know that I have. If I get out in the sunlight, or I get over my red light or in front of my red light panels after I take methylene blue, you can feel the difference. You can actually feel this activation. Have you had that experience?
Dude, I'm in the sunlight all the time, so it's hard to say.
I know.
But again, with my red light device in particular, the power of it, I do feel an effect if I use it. But
you don't need it because you have the sunlight there. Yeah.
But again, honestly, I think in terms of I don't notice much of anything really. Just, and again, not being big headed, but I'm up here. So again, like me doing I don't really feel much. Like creatine, I even probably feel a negative effect from taking things like creatine.
Mm-hmm. You're already hypermethylated. You're good to go, right? So
exactly.
I think it's very important that everybody going to have a different experience, right? So if you don't have a lot of native sunlight, if you're in a cold weather climate like me and you're using your red light panels, I live in Colorado, so I mean it's really nice to be able to get that, take the methylene blue in the morning, get in front of my red light panels, and if I do that, oftentimes I'll have it dissolve in my mouth because I know I want it to act faster, so that it's happening. So, for example, I have people and my clients take the methylene blue about 15 to 30 minutes before they would go in front of their red light panels, or 15 to 30 minutes before they go in the sunlight, or at least be in the sunlight within that time frame if they're already outside, kind of thing. So that's a really interesting combination. And there's some literature there, and we're working on doing some more studies and understanding how that works. Yeah.
I actually, there was one experience when I was in Mexico near La Paz, so on Baja California. It's like very desert-like. And I was in the sun all day long on the boat. And I don't burn, but it was like, I didn't even cover up. I didn't even seek the shade. And my skin could just handle it. And again, maybe my skin's pretty like that anyway, but maybe methylene blue had an effect with that. But again, definitely do think it has some sort of mitigating effects. And again, when we're thinking about producing energy, it's producing this water. So again, we're not dehydrated. So where the photons basically have somewhere to go instead of basically like this dry savanna, they're actually
Yeah.
they're going into this water and the matrix inside the cell and structuring things, changing proteins. And again, fundamentally, this is how it works with red light and light
Yeah.
anyway, but
Yeah.
this is the whole point.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Any effects of coffee? So again, I would add on to this is, like, there's some people that believe that coffee has an effect with nitric oxide. And
Mm-hmm.
again, nitric oxide would be a gas. So again, nitric oxide will be influencing this enzyme or this protein in the mitochondria we're referring to. Have you seen synergistic effects with like coffee or even niacin with methylene blue?
So with our other product that we have called Blue Canatine, so what we've been talking about is pure methylene blue, and the Transcriptions company product is called Just Blue, related to just being methylene blue. We have one product that has caffeine, nicotine, CBD, and methylene blue together, and that's called Blue Canatine. And we do know that caffeine obviously has a stimulant effect. It works on various pathways to block you feeling tired in your brain. And it does have a potential effect on nitric oxide. And we do know that at low dose, this is important, at low dose methylene blue, like the dosing that we're talking about, you're actually increasing nitric oxide. But even at a little bit of higher dosing, it could have the opposite effect, interestingly enough, even at 1 milligram per kilogram or above. Because what's happening with methylene blue, to go back to that just for a second, is that it's increasing ATP production. And as a result of that, it's creating a stimulus for your mitochondria to need more electrons so that it continues to make energy as it's doing it. And so that means it's trying to take your glucose in your body and consume it and make it into electrons and then allow it to donate to your electron transport chain and make energy. And then to do that, it needs to bring more stuff to that mitochondria. Yep. And so it dilates blood vessels around those mitochondria that are working harder. And that's using nitric oxide, actually. So
angiogenesis essentially with lactate as well, like to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, that's more over the long term, right? In the short term, we have just the dilation of blood vessels, but we don't know about angiogenesis with methylene blue specifically. I haven't seen that literature, but it'd be interesting to look at that. We know, like in an acute stroke or something, an acute traumatic brain injury, there is some data that higher dose methylene blue could help actually save tissue from dying because it's getting more electrons again, allowing you to produce more energy regardless of the low oxygen states in that area. So, but you make a good point. Yeah.
And this is where it comes in with your other practice, apart from this, like a man of many things, but like the HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Mm-hmm. So again, obviously this is a dual effect here because now you're actually providing the raw material or the magnet essentially, which is what it is, bringing the electrons through. But I mean, would normal breath work? So like the Buteyko breath work, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am,
so trying to induce a bit of hypercapnia. Is that hypercapnia? Yeah, hypercapnia. So increase CO2, then change the Bohr effect. Have you seen utilization with that, with methylene blue at all?
Yeah, so you're answering. These are really good questions, and these are things that I'm currently.
This is how I think. Yeah. Like we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, these are currently the questions that I think about when it comes to energy production, because a lot of the work I do in the hyperbaric field is related to oxygen and energy production, obviously, and we know that. I'm back. Am I back? Sorry. Am I back? Sorry. We also know that methylene blue has a significant effect on the mitochondria as well. And so when you do breath holds, what you're really doing is you are potentially increasing oxygen carrying capacity. And you're doing that by this splenic contraction and all these kinds of other things. And so it's really interesting to see how this all works together. I'm working with a couple of breath experts now, practicing with methylene blue, seeing what changes if they have breath holds actually increase, and they actually seem to. I'm using it also with people that are going to altitude as well and doing mountaineering and seeing how this works as well when they're under lower oxygen conditions. And also there seems to be benefits here too. And it's all about mitochondrial optimization, right? If you're at low altitude, if you're not breathing, your mitochondria are going to need to work more efficiently so that they are keeping you alive, keeping you safe. And so we have all these sort of regulatory mechanisms in our body that are allowing us to do that. And I think methylene blue can play a part in a lot of that as well. Yeah.
I mean, this is a bit more of a selfish question here now and a bit more of a clinical question. Have you ever done with either yourself or with a client doing like a methylene dosage for 5 days prior to, say, the organic acid test with Genova? and then done one without that? Has there been any clinical differences when we're looking at these intermediates of the Krebs or the citric acid cycle and all these metabolic processes?
Let's do it. No, I haven't done it yet. No, it's not something we've done where we've done like a before and after, quite like
Because
that.
I think that'd be, again, obviously it's changing the whole game of things to a certain degree. So it'd be interesting to see the change. And obviously there's so many variables, like those 5 days of a washout, like what happens, blah, blah, blah. But I think it'd be a cool experiment to do.
Yeah, I love the idea. Actually, I haven't actually, we're talking about various ways of testing methylene blue. And this is a great way, actually, Ryan. So let's chat about it.
I just thought about it just now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Anyway. I love it. Yeah. No, I think it's great because I care about the measurements. I care about the data. We obviously care more about how people feel. And I know that's a big deal with you as far as doing the things that are truly going to optimize us, are going to make us feel better, no matter what everything else under the hood is showing. But but having the data is really great to play with too.
Yeah. Well, we got Thomas from Omnus, who's got a testing company in the UK and Europe.
Okay.
And like he's just gone like that. So I'm sure he's like his mouth salivating probably.
Let's do it.
Doing that of him doing that himself. But
let's do it.
Is there any gender specifics? Because obviously some people don't actually realize this in the research. Even in rat studies, they typically use male rats, and they actually don't specify this. So again, is there a context there with females and males with dosaging or how to use this, especially when we're talking about the cycle and variations with estrogen and progesterone? What's your thoughts of this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So far we haven't had a lot of reports that there is a huge amount of difference between males and females when it comes to utilization. But I mean, certainly we know that females are, with their cycles, requiring more support at different times, and they have the more efficiency of their mitochondria and their energy production capacity at certain times as well. So these are really good questions that we don't have answers to right now yet, Ryan. And but things that we are looking to explore. I have a couple of female colleagues that are interested in doing more work with methylene blue specifically for just this reason. So your timing is actually quite good. I've had these conversations over the last couple weeks with my female biohacker friends who are like, well, let's do some real stuff here and see how things go with cycle, at least focusing on sleep or focusing on recovery. Some various easy kind of data metrics to follow. So stay tuned is the short answer.
I mean, I would say you should reach out to my friend Laura, Miss Biohacker. So she actually wrote the article on my website discussing methylene blue, and she's all into this sort of space as well, epigenetics, all this kind of stuff. So it'd be good to reach out to her, and she'll obviously she's a female, so she'd obviously I appreciate this.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I don't think we answered this, but like with fasting, is there positives there? And again, I'm presuming so, because like we said, changes in the ratios of NAD, you're likely going to be burning fat better, using glucose better. In theory, does this make sense?
Yeah. So we have people that are using it with fast and having some significant success in just the ways you described, right? Because it's mitochondrial optimizing at the same time as you're also recalibrating the system with fasting and going into fat burning, which we know is better for your mitochondria in general, at least in the short term for people, as far as a cleaner source of fuel. And it's also we've talked a little bit about this, we don't know for sure, but it seems to help people on the transition from glucose to fat metabolism as well. Yeah. It seems to accelerate that process and make it a little bit less challenging for people if they're doing longer fasting as well.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's kind of, I never thought about that transition period. In terms of, I think it was the Nobel Prize winner, Paul Ehrlich, maybe I'm butchering his name again, but like Paul Ehrlich, he basically described methylene blue as a magic bullet. And he said, or someone using his words, it can sense where it needs to go in terms of tissues or cells. Now, do you see that within your own practice or from anecdotal feedback?
Absolutely, I do. Yeah, because again, it's mitochondrial centered, what we're talking about here. Where your mitochondria need the most support, that's where the methylene blue is going to go, is really what it comes down to. So if it's your brain, that's where it's going to go. If it's your liver, that's where it's going to go. But we are oftentimes in the work that we're doing focused on brain function specifically, because that's where, especially in the last several years, we've just seen a huge amount of people with with post-viral fatigue or just chronic fatigue, and then brain fog and concentration issues. And so we know that when we dissolve it in your mouth, it's going to go faster to your brain, and that's where it's going to concentrate. But in general, that's the case. Where the body has a really great way of trying its best to bring things to an area that need it. And methylene blue is just it gets the benefit. It benefits from that, because the mitochondria sending out signals like, I'm under duress, I'm under oxidative stress, like, I'm not making energy well, please help me, and so then go ahead.
That's if you don't suppress it with obviously like some certain medications, or even going a bit too crazy with certain supplements or food. You can actually cause consequences or downstream effects as a result of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to provide a little bit more of, like, it's not like this holy grail, but is there any safety concerns? Is there any interactions to know about and be aware of?
Yeah, so with methylene blue specifically, you don't want to take methylene blue if you're taking serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So these are antidepressants. There's a potential combination that could cause something called serotonin syndrome, which is not cool. Not really described at the dosing that we use in our product, but still we use it as a blanket statement just to be careful. And this is also the case with psychedelics as well that have high serotonin reuptake inhibition. So please be aware of that. The thing about methylene blue that we didn't talk about is it also works as what's called a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which is it helps prevent some of the neurotransmitters from being broken down. And this includes dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine as well. So as a result, you don't want to be taking like high dose methylene blue with any of these serotonin reuptake inhibitors. In general, we just say don't take it with our product as well. So just be aware of that. If you're pregnant, it's not recommended. If you're breastfeeding, it's not recommended. And if you have G6PD deficiency, which is a blood deficiency, this is pretty rare, but it's Mediterranean climate people, North Africa, South Mediterranean, they sometimes will have this as well, but it's very rare to have that potential side effect. But overall, the dosing is the most important, starting with low dose and then working your way up. Or if you're taking higher dosing, you're not doing it very regularly because of potential toxicity issues as we described.
Amazing. Well,
yeah, man.
Is there anything else? I mean, maybe some people can throw some questions out there on the chat section, but is there anything else that you think that we missed out on or want to cover? Please go ahead.
Thanks. This has been fun. I appreciate you doing this on Black Friday when we have people trying to sell products and everything else. I know everybody's probably just trying to get the quickest sale. We do have some sales as well. I can talk about at the end, but or we could put in the comments. But one thing that I saw my friend Josh Holland write down here as we were talking is that one of the benign side effects of taking methylene blue is that it does make your urine blue. So just be aware that you would take methylene blue, it concentrates in your urine, and it will turn your urine a slight shade of blue. And this is actually interesting, Ryan, for you. I find that the more stressed people are, the more they need their dose to be higher for their urine to turn blue. The lower stress level they have, the less sort of inflammation, oxidative load, the lower the dose it takes to make your urine blue is what it comes down to. So it's almost like diagnostic on some level. We think this is just what we've been playing around with internally.
So say that again. So the more the higher the dose, the more blue your urine might be if you're under stress.
Right. So basically, I think the easiest way to think about it is that so I'll give you my example, right? So if I take a half of a troche and I don't have blue urine, that's often because I'm having more stress on my system. So in that case, I might need to take more because I want to titrate my dose until I have blue urine is what it comes down to. Because then you've given yourself enough antioxidant capacity. You were mentioning your skin earlier when you didn't burn when you're in South America. We know from skin studies, actually, sorry, just to finish this, that methylene blue is as powerful as vitamin C or glutathione. And a lot of those studies were done in the skin itself. So just to give you a sense that we do have some protection there too, even if you're taking it orally.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen one or two companies actually do transdermal methylene blue as well. And again, for skin infections, maybe that's a good thing. But again, I also think there's an interaction. Like when you're saying the stress, like you do burn through it. So again, for me, as an example, And
Yeah.
again, like where I am, like my skin type, my sun exposure, I go out in the sun all day, and like I am actually going to be breaking that down. The sunlight is a stressor technically. So again,
Yep.
my skins are burning through things and breaking down things, and hence my urine actually might be a bit more yellow, essentially because of my B2 content or my
Sure.
folate
Sure.
or even my methylene blue content in my blood or in my tissues. So I'm actually like peeing out more yellowy, bluey, and it goes to like a green color, as
Neon
an
green. Yeah.
example.
Yeah. Neon
Yeah.
green
So
with some of the B vitamins. Yeah.
yeah, so we can do some crazy stuff with our urine. And then
Yes.
if you and then eat some dragon fruit or pitaya out here, and then that will go like your urine will go purple as a result of that as well.
Yeah, or
It's
some like
like
heavy B content. Yeah, that's one thing we
yeah,
get is like some people need to take drug tests for whatever their job and things, and they've scared the shit out of their drug testers because their urine's blue. But you don't turn positive on any drug test with methylene blue. Your
yeah.
urine's bluish, so it scares your. If you get drug tested, you want to scare the people that are taking your urine. You can make it blue for them just by taking methylene blue. So
Okay, oh, one final question would be so for example, say someone's taking methylene blue, say they're using
yeah,
prescriptions, and they they tell their doctor, and the doctor's a bit like, okay, what is this? Your tongue's blue, like there's problems here, and like they just obviously not clued up around methylene blue. Like,
right.
what would you say to these people, these patients at their doctors to try and explain this to their doctor and not think that they've gone crazy or something, or that this is like fish cleaner, which is essentially what methylene blue, a derivative of methylene blue, the
Right.
pharmaceutical grade, goes into. So how
Right.
would you
So
get
yeah.
this over on the? How would you get this point across with a doctor?
Yeah, so we are not fish tank cleaner. We do use methylene blue, but we don't use methylene blue. That's for fish tanks. Methylene blue for fish tanks actually the impurities are like 10 or 15%. Arsenic, cadmium, lead, very common. Only 2%
Lovely.
methylene blue. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what you want for your fish too, right?
You,
Maybe you should be giving fish our methylene blue instead, for God's sake. But it depends on how much you like your fish. But when it comes to methylene blue in the medical setting, doctors know about methylene blue already. They know about it for actually, it's still on the World Health Organization's list of essential medications because it's an antidote to carbon monoxide poisoning, methahemoglobinemia, it's called, it's the
yeah.
long name, and then also for cyanide poisoning. So if you get cyanide poisoned, it screws up the first complexes of your mitochondria. The good news is that methylene blue still works on those last couple of complexes and you can still survive. So it bypasses those first couple too. And so it's an essential medication for those two conditions as an antidote. And so we also know about it so it's used in the ERs, it's used in surgical sites. So doctors know about it, but they don't know about it for mitochondrial optimization. And so when it comes to doctors, what I would do is actually point them to some of the research that we have collated together, either by Dr. Francisco Gonzalez Lima, who's great.
Yeah.
He's actually done a lot of great work on dementia and Alzheimer's as being a blood flow issue and how methylene blue reverses a lot of this, especially in animals, but human studies are coming. And then also on our website, on the Transcriptions website, we have maybe 4 or 5 articles right now on methylene blue, and they're all well cited. I've written all of them actually myself.
Yeah.
And so this is not, some other person writing these articles. This is me going through the research and learning the stuff and making sure that I'm providing as much good information as I can to everybody. So I would point them to our website. You can, and then also we have a whole program for practitioners as well that are interested in using our products in their offices. And so I work with them. I actually have a methylene blue webinar for practitioners that I'll send you as well, Ryan, that I just
That's
completed.
cool.
And I'm really hoping to provide that education. That's what my company is all about. Transcriptions we're precision dose, we're pharmaceutical grade, we're physician formulated, obviously. And then we're trying to really, move that needle on health by really finding new ways to do things for people that are out of the box, but that are not really that difficult to do, along with the harder work of really trying to optimize our physiology and foundation. So,
Another question. This is the final one. Like, do you
sure.
know of, or have you worked with any like high-level sports athletes using this? And again, I don't know about their testing in the US compared to the Europe or
Yeah.
UK, but like, have you actually, like, you don't obviously have to share names, but have you worked with high-level elite athletes?
So they love our blue carnitine, which is our combination of nicotine, caffeine, CBD, and methylene blue, because it's going to give you 3 to 5 hours of focus, concentration. Your hand's going to be steadier. Your balance is going to be better. And so they love that product, like MMA guys, NFL guys, And then I've been using Just Blue with a bunch of other players as well. Now it's WADA approved, but it's not NSF certified yet. So that's the
Yeah.
difference, but we're working on that. But it's really what we're talking about, everything here, it all applies to athletes. It's the same thing. And also what I find with a lot of the athletes is they like the mood enhancing part of taking methylene blue, because again, those neurotransmitters are going to be out in the synapse a little bit longer. And so you have a little bit more norepinephrine, a little more serotonin, a little more dopamine. Yeah. And so like I've had a couple marathon runners that love like the feeling that they get because they're on methylene blue while they're doing their training and their exercise as well. So it's got the blue cannatines are really great, targeted, focused, get shit done for 3 to 5 hours, right? But your methylene blue is supported in that product, and then in its own product, the Just Blue, it's really a mitochondrial optimizer, making your mitochondria more efficient. So that's how I delineate it. And then I work with a lot of athletes these days, but it's actually quite fun now integrating this with the hyperbaric work that I do as well. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm waiting to see some player on the World Cup with a blue tongue. You know, the soccer, football World Cup.
Yeah.
But again, like, they just obviously have to be careful. And if someone did have a blue tongue, obviously it just going like the world would just be going crazy. The media would just be like, "What's this?" And like,
right.
Again, you'll get all the backstory. Like, okay, it's like from some C19 sort of thing, and then like. Again, it's been very unfair for methylene blue actually within like the last 3 years of like it's just been kicked to the curb, and all the studies that do support it have just basically been pissed on essentially or crapped on.
Well, it's the nature of the beast is pissed blue on basically, right? Is what we should say. But what it comes down to is that it's an old medication. It's been around a long time. It's an old compound, so there's no money to be made by any pharmaceutical company, really. Although some are trying, they're trying to derive certain drugs from methylene blue for Alzheimer's disease and to clear amyloid plaques, if that's still really an issue with, that's another thing altogether. But anyway, they're using it in that capacity. But again, this is like any other treatment that's cheap, is that there's no money in it, right? So that's why people don't get behind it.
And then that's why you just literally don't hear or see nothing about it with psychiatric sort of issues or children with autism, ADHD, just because it's just like there's no money there. Why would they want to be touting it?
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, what I always say is that you got to start off with the basics. You got to, and that's really what health optimization medicine is all about. That's what the nonprofit is training doctors to do, is to really focus on the basics, the foundational things, and then use things like methylene blue, use things like nicotine, caffeine, and use other compounds.
You just went for a second. Sorry. We're good. Yeah.
Other compounds that basically what I was saying is that start with the easy stuff. Methylene blue is a foundational piece too, as far as I'm concerned as well, for people, especially as they're on their early journeys of optimization.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'd say it's slightly different than looking at the food component, because again, it's looking at the actual engine. When we're looking at food, it's the petrol or the gas.
Sure.
We're discussing here with health optimization medicine or mitochondria health, we're talking about the engines, and anything that optimizes the engines, it's essentially going to make you more efficient at using the petrol or the gas. So again, I do get your point with the foundation. But again, if you're like looking at a screen before going to bed or giving yourself only 5 hours of sleep, like methylene blue is like, sure, it might help, but it's not going to be serving you well, essentially. And again, you would agree with that as well. But
of course, I mean, I always talk about, like, if you're thinking you could do everything you did to get to where you are and just take a supplement to fix you, it's not going to work, right? But I mean, it certainly can help you feel a little bit better to help motivate you along the process sometimes, right? So that's the deal always, is how do you motivate people? Do you motivate them by giving them something to make them feel a little bit better so then they can start getting motivated? It's like what we call a cornerstone habit being exercise. Once you start exercising, everything else is better, right? So you start eating better, you start having better relationships. And so, what are those things that we can do as clinicians to really start the engine, let's call it, right? And I think that's really what methylene blue can do for some people, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope everyone who's watching this or who will watch this, because I will record this. Well, it will be recorded and saved and shared later. But I hope everyone's got some good wisdom or knowledge about this. And if you do have any comments or questions, throw them in the comment section. maybe myself or Scott will come later and answer and we'll help you out.
Yeah,
If
I'll
you
do my
obviously
best
want to
for
learn,
sure.
yeah, if you want to learn like more insight around prescriptions, either like methylene blue or the other products Scott mentioned, then go to their website or go to their page on Instagram, or even I've got an article on my website
Yeah, go
discussing
to your
methylene
page
blue.
too, and you have a discount
Yeah,
code for our products as well.
yeah,
And we have a sale going on for Black Friday through that time frame. If you guys are listening, we have 25% off today on all of our products, including subscriptions this Friday today, Black
yeah.
Friday, and also we have additional discounts through Monday. If you guys are interested, now's a great time. And then you can use Ryan's code as well, and that'll also benefit you at the same time. So, Ryan, you rock, man. I appreciate you taking some time
Oh,
to do this. And
you know what? When you were just talking, it just okay. That was it. That was the final question. Okay, so everyone asks me about international. Like,
yeah,
so
yeah,
again,
yeah.
at this moment in time, you only sell or distribute to the US, correct?
No, so we have the UK. We have
Okay,
you can get our products in the UK. You can get them in
from
New
another
Zealand.
company though. From
Yes,
another, from yeah,
yeah. We have wholesalers over there, distributors. We have Xbrain UK. We have Functional
yes,
Self. Those are two
yeah.
companies in the UK. We have a company in South Africa as well, and we have a company that's in Australia selling our
Okay,
products. They're called Optimize, and I can't remember the name of the one in South Africa, but I can link them all for you in the
but
notes as well.
but if not, like for example, I'm in Costa Rica right now. If I really
Yeah,
wanted it, I could buy it, send it to a logistic company, and they can send it to me in Costa Rica if need be.
yeah,
And
forward
maybe
freight company. Yeah.
yeah. So again, even if like you're in the Middle East or one of those countries where Scott didn't share a say, then you can always do that. Do
We're
it
always
yourself
looking
that
for other
way.
countries as well. Actually, we just sent our first wholesale order to our distributor to Kazakhstan, for example. So,
Oh,
I mean,
really?
we're really happy to entertain other countries that are interested in selling our products. It's just a matter of what the legalities are within that particular country to be able to do it. Oh, did you lose
Okay,
me?
got it. Okay, a little bit. I think we lost your visual, but we can still hear you. But
Oh, okay.
we'll wrap it up now. But I'll share some links in my stories, and again, there'll be more information in the caption. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ryan. Rocket.
Thanks, Scott.
Appreciate you.